Go Jackers.
Good afternoon, all, and welcome to WreckTalk. And bear with me today. Evidently, I have bronchitis. I had chest x-rays done, and I don't feel too good. I don't even have my glasses on. I can't even see anything. I know spring practice and all has started. I'm going to make videos on that, but I needed to make another video. All right. I saw, and this is the same guy. I think his name's Joe DeLeone. DeLeone. I have no idea. And look, respect the guys that have their own channel. Nothing personal, but I think they got it wrong as it pertains to Georgia Tech. This is the guy that said Brent Key was a lazy hire the second that we hired him. And now they're doubled down. So they made a video. It's the Ruffino and Joe show. Brent Key was a terrible hire. First-year expectations for Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key. Though I don't think they talk about expectations. They just talk about how garbage Brent Key is. So, with that, let's see what we got.
All right, so Brent Key, how do I want to introduce him? Okay, so look, Brent Key, Georgia Tech obviously fired their head coach.
Yes.
They promoted Brent Key from within. Now, when Brent Key went 4-4 as the Texas head coach, as the interim head.
Did he say Texas? I think he meant Tech. I may just misspoke.
Coach. I don't think at Georgia Tech, with that roster that they had, is honestly that bad. I thought that they did some good things.
So at first I want to say props to this guy. So the older guy, I guess Ruffino, is a little more level-headed in my opinion. It seems like with Joe, there's nothing that he's ever going to do that he's going to think it was a good hire. But I agree with that. That's a good point, and I think it's a nuanced point to say, look what this guy inherited. We've talked about this on the channel. Going 4-4 with the absolute dumpster fire he inherited is pretty good. So, let's see.
First half, they gave Georgia everything that they wanted, but again, everybody's trying to compare themselves to Georgia. Now, Brent Key, the new head coach at Georgia Tech, was obviously his offensive line guy. He played offensive line at Georgia Tech. Some SEC fans remember he replaced Mario Cristobal at Alabama in 2019 and was there.
I don't think it was 2019. I think he won a natty with them in 2017. Either way, not a big deal.
Until he left to go home and went back to Georgia Tech as the run game coordinator and offensive line coach and the assistant head coach at Georgia Tech. Here's my hot take of the day.
Okay, he's saying in 2019 he came. Yeah.
I truly believe this in my heart of hearts. If they wanted to, Georgia Tech could be the Notre Dame of the South. I fully believe that. And to some extent, due to the academic requirements of both programs, Georgia is a more rich state when it comes to in-state talent that they're not attacking. They're getting poached by everybody.
Notre Dame has notoriously poached some elite talent like Kyle Hamilton from the private schools in the area. So 100% correct.
It's not just Notre Dame. Florida.
That's true.
Alabama. Obviously, Georgia gets the ones that they handpick. Clemson goes in there. This is really bad. Joe, here's
a thing that you get a lot. Like Lou brings this up to well, look at Stanford, look at Notre Dame. Like Stanford was able to have success at one time when Jim Harbaugh was there. Notre Dame is able to kind of have certainly a lot more success than Georgia Tech has had, particularly in recruiting. But that's apples and oranges. You cannot compare. There's not another school in the country that has the academic restrictions as it pertains to recruiting that Georgia Tech has. So there's not a liberal arts program at Georgia Tech like there is at others. Even Ivy League schools have that, right? The only straight comparison you could make academically with a school like Georgia Tech is a school like MIT, where every major at Georgia Tech requires Calculus 1. Now, even if you go into the School of Business, it's not a straight Calc 1, which is what a lot of the athletes end up majoring in. But it's a variant of Calculus 1. So to say, oh, well, it's just the same. Like if Notre Dame can do it, Georgia Tech can do it. It's not the same thing. You can't compare them that way. Now, if you want to have a conversation, should that be changed? That's a whole other conversation.
That's why I'm not in on Brent Key. You ready? This is
Tell
what
me.
I told you earlier in the show. You want to know why the number one reason why I'm out on Brent Key right now?
Why?
Listen to this.
My man went in the portal and got Haynes King. Probably the thrower of the football and quarterback history. Bro,
the worst thrower of the quarterback in football history. Is that true? Is Haynes King the worst passer of the quarterback in history? This was a guy that was highly recruited. I get it, and they're going to talk about his odd throwing motion. But when you look at who we've had, right? Zach Pyron, who we've interviewed on the channel, elevated his level, like came in, played it. I almost said high level. That's like Voldemort on this channel. We're not using those kind of words, but played very well, particularly for a freshman. So, are you saying that bringing Haynes King in as competition to him, that's why Brent Key is a stupid hire? Like, give me a break, man. That doesn't even make great sense. Haynes King does have a lot of talent. Now, they can't agree on what his 40 is. He's listed as a 4.5. Joe tries to say he runs a 4.3, which there's no way that could possibly be true. But he's a guy that still has a lot of potential. And if you're telling me that the situation that he was in at Texas A&M might not have had something to do with him playing as well as he could have, like, come on. Texas A&M has been in this tumultuous situation last year. Everyone's transferring out. They don't have an offensive coordinator. Jimbo Fisher, is bent on this archaic style of offense that might not suit Haynes King. Like, I get it. If you say, hey, I think Georgia Tech could have done better or something, but to just doo-doo on this kid and say he's the worst passer of the that's what a lot of I feel like shows like this do, is just like, what's the most incendiary thing we can say? Worst ever, best ever, whatever. Like, you speak in these like hyperbolic type of rhetoric that is not getting to the truth of the matter.
Oh, he's like this.
Yeah, the ball's like up here. When
he has an odd throwing motion. I agree.
What makes you think that you can go into the portal and get Haynes King? Now, can they work on King's mechanics? Because look, I will tell you a little something now about Haynes King. He's got a little athleticism to him.
He's got more than a little.
Athlete that's rumored that he's a 4.3 guy.
If he runs a 4.3, then my Gaguna is hitting the floor. He's not.
Yeah, so he talked about his wiener. That was fun. And look at this face. He doesn't run a 4.3. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs runs a 4.3. So, like, what are you talking about? Like, he's a very athletic quarterback that has potential passing. And we're going to see what he got. So, like, if he comes out in the spring game and balls out, if he comes out and wins the job and balls out, like I'm just not convinced this kid is the worst passer of the football ever.
Running a 4.3.
He's faster than you think. I was stunned by that too.
I've literally seen Harold Perkins track him down in open space and body slam him. Spare me that
maybe he's a slow. Maybe that means Harold Perkins is a 4.2. I'm just kidding. But
yeah, okay.
He's fast, nonetheless.
You were talking about Jaquaylin Roy earlier. Yeah. I've literally seen Jaquaylin Roy run him down. Okay, so let's not.
He's fast though.
All right, let's
maybe
move on.
He's 4.5.
He's 4.5.
Not faster than Anthony Richardson.
He's much smaller though.
He is not faster than Anthony Richardson.
He's a 4.4 athlete.
All right, let's get to it.
If they can work on that kid's mechanics, maybe you got something. But man,
what makes you think? So, like, is he just a lost cause? No one should sign this kid. Like, no one should take a chance on this kid. It's just, and that's again what I'm talking about. Like, done, gone. Like, I feel like I need to be Nick Saban right now. If we would have listened to y'all, we'd be done, gone, dead in the water. That's kind of how they're looking at Haynes King.
It was like a little kid playing t-ball, by the way. That was like what I was trying to think of, like where like where like a 5-year-old's playing t-ball and they like bring the ball up really high and they like awkwardly kind of shove it. It's just a weird.
Okay.
Dude,
no way to win with that.
They're 67.
I get it. He has a weird throwing
when
motion.
when you had that kind of a state that's that rich in talent, what are you doing?
Now, I do agree with them here. Like Georgia, California, Texas, like these are the prime, probably the top 3, Florida, top 4 recruiting states in the country. And Georgia Tech has to be able to recruit their own state better. I'm not saying you got to come out the gate and recruiting at the level that Georgia and Clemson are recruiting out of Georgia. But it can't just be that even like UNC, Florida State, like these teams come and poach Georgia too, and we're like the last to the trough. Makes me think of Moneyball. And what does the run of the litter do? He dies. So they're right. We do have to turn that around, and I do think we're doing things to turn that around.
There's some optimism here.
Okay,
I have 0.
Right. So they go 4-4. He goes 4-4 as the interim. He has
0 optimism. Okay.
Some upsets in this period of time, and for some reason, Georgia Tech fans are so high on Brent Key. So I posted on my channel.
Could it be that he took over as interim, beat a ranked Pitt on the road right out of the gate, came home, beat a very good Duke team for a team that hasn't played well at home, went on the road, I know Virginia Tech's down, went to Blacksburg and got a win. And keep in mind, all, like, in the Virginia game, Jeff Sims went down. We're on our second string quarterback, and then Zach Pyron goes down. And we're still able to go to the team that won the division in North Carolina and get a win on the road. Score on Georgia in the opening drive. Looked respectable against Georgia. I mean, how he looks right now is how I feel about his opinion. Like, I don't get why Tech guys are so high on him. Now, if Collins had got fired at the end of the season and we automatically named Brent Key, maybe he has something. But Brent Key's already showed you what he can do. All right? So don't tell me, I don't think you're high on Brent Key. Give me a break with that.
A reaction video, and I got way more views on it than I should have because I
agree.
Killed in the comments. It got way too many comments with all these losers complaining that I was saying that Brent Key was a
I was one of those losers. By the way, it helps you when people comment on the video, so keep calling us losers.
Terrible, lazy hire. 4-4's fine. 4-4's great. It's easy to rally around a guy who is a former player of the program when you got rid of your head coach. But he is not the long-term solution.
So this is another thing I've talked about. And this is another comment talking about, he's not the long-term solution. Who are you going to hire that's not named Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney, take your pick of the Kirby Smart, of the premier coaches right now, that you'd say, oh, we're definitely going to be a top 10 perennial team, top 5 perennial team in 5 to 10 years. That's going to come to Georgia Tech right now.
And we saw that in recruiting. I know that it's his first year recruiting, but no, I think that this is...
It's not his first year recruiting. He's only been the coach for like 2 months. And they're going to lambaste him for this class.
One of the worst hires of the cycle. I think it's a terrible, terrible...
He's the worst hire of the cycle. I guess he's talking about this year. I hope he's not talking about in the cycle of Georgia Tech coaches. But
higher. And I looked at what their schedule is next season. I'd be shocked if they win 4 games. Shocked.
Buddy's going to correct him on that. Hold on.
If they win 4 games.
Well, he did win 4 games as an interim.
Not only did he win 4 games as an interim, he didn't take over until like a third of the season was already over. So he's already done that. Now you can see his face now like, oh man, like I didn't actually think through what I was saying.
A lot of the games that he did win were great timing for some of those wins.
What? He's going to make me cuss for the first time on the channel. I might have to bleep something out. What do you mean great timing? When is not a great time to win? Like, if you ever won, has your team ever won a game and you're like, man, that was horrible timing to win. God.
And again, I give him credit. He had some upsets, but I don't think that is sustainable.
Based on what? What do you mean it's not sustainable? It's not sustainable. That argument would make sense if he had like this super talent-rich team that was all graduating this year, and then you don't think he can recruit or whatever. He had the toughest job in the country as a coach. He took over a team that had gone 3-9 the last 3 seasons, that had no identity on offense, and turned them in to a 4-win team in the last stretch, with wins on the road against Pitt and Duke. Not Pitt and Duke. Pitt and North Carolina. North Carolina ended up going to the ACC title game, by the way, and we beat them on the road. So what makes you think that's not sustainable if you can do it as the interim? When he got that road win against Pitt, that was his first game as coach. He immediately changed things. If Jeff Collins was still our coach, how many games do you think we win? 1 at most? But yeah, it's not sustainable. Brent Key's garbage. Get it.
I agree with that. Look, I agree with that. I'm not going to say it's lazy, but you had Willie Fritz.
Yeah, that's the whole video, is that it's a lazy hire.
Okay, the two.
That's who they should have hired.
Well, they should have gone. They should have gone to the ends of the earth and hired Willie Fritz. Now, I hate it bothers me to say that as a Louisiana homegrown guy, because Tulane's right here. But Bruddy, like you're coming like I look at programs sometimes.
So, here's the thing. I think that's a fair point. If you're going to make the argument that, hey, Brent Key did some good things at Tech, but in the long term, Willie Fritz is going to be better. I mean, his age concerns me, and some other things, and how long it's taken him to turn programs. But I think that's a fair argument. If you're saying, hey, I just think Willie Fritz would have been better for Georgia Tech. Like, I get that. We can have a conversation about that. But when Brent Key won, it was just horrible. It was great timing for him to win those games. Yes! Yeah! And do you think that Brent Key's coaching ability had jack all to do with us winning those games?
And this is a massive pet peeve of mine. Joe, I know for an outright fact, when it comes to hiring head coaches, like hiring dudes, I would find a way to hire Willie Fritz before I promoted Brent Key.
That's a fair point.
I get that he's one of your guys, but you know what historically doesn't work? Hiring your guy. Okay? It just doesn't work. Joe, the outside get failed. Name coaches that have been promoted from within, and that
that's a point there too.
Nebraska's guy didn't work out at all.
Right.
So I just don't see it right now. I just can't. I can't see the forest through the trees. And if I could, I would say, well, the only way that he was doing that is because he was recruiting at a higher level. When are these programs going to get in a situation where you just like, does Georgia Tech not have money? Like, that's not true. They do have money.
I just think
that's a relative thing, though. Okay. Does Georgia Tech have more than a cent in their bank account? Yes. Does Georgia Tech have a lot of money compared to what's in my bank account? Yes. But what it takes to, just look at the last time they reported on what different teams' recruiting budgets were. It was like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I don't know in what order. Georgia was number 1. Okay? Do you think if Tech they wouldn't do that? They've already increased their recruiting budget. They've already increased their budget for staff. You know, they've created positions that weren't there before or reintroduced them. So, you got to do what you can. Does Georgia Tech have money? Yes. Do they have the money that other people do to recruit on their level? No, not right now.
They don't care. Like that's where I'm at. It's an institution where I don't think that they care if they're competitive, because when was the last time that they were competitive? They're not seeking out.
The last time they were competitive was when they had Calvin Johnson.
Wrong. Objectively wrong. We won an ACC title in 2009. And we went to the Orange Bowl, 2014, 2015. So were we not competitive in those years? Are you not competitive if you win your conference? And I am so sick of this. I mean, this is another thing that a lot of people say, oh, Georgia, just don't care. Just don't care. Well, then 95% of football teams don't care. I mean, I could turn that on them and be like, look, y'all's studio doesn't look like ESPN studio. Y'all don't have the setup Pat McAfee does. I mean, do y'all not care about your channel? I mean, you could probably get more viewers if you had that kind of setup and you were paying for advertisement. Do you not want to grow your channel? No, it's not that at all. All right? I think they generally have a pretty good channel. But you have to operate within the budget you have and with the resources available to you. Okay? So this idea that, Georgia Tech just doesn't care, I just don't think is true. And if you're going to say, well, Georgia Tech doesn't understand the landscape of college football and really what it takes to win, I might even agree with that for some years.
And, I mean, that was the last time that they were utterly competitive. And you know what? Before then, it was in the movie Rudy.
Yeah, we won a national title in 1990, by the way. But, I mean, I guess that's not competitive,
Jeez. And that's bad. That's so bad. And honestly, if I'm Willie Fritz, I'm waiting for a better offer, man. I'm waiting for a much better offer than Georgia Tech, because
they don't care. Giant, though. Think about.
But it is, but it isn't, because they're not going to put in the foundation and the support.
I don't disagree with
Colorado's a sleeping giant. That Deion took that job. And
we'll see how Deion does. We will see, because he films everything he does.
Deion was rumored for the Georgia Tech job, and everyone was so sure that the Georgia Tech fans were actually so sure that Deion was going to take the job.
Who was so sure that Deion was going to take the Georgia Tech job? There were Georgia Tech fans that said, yeah, we would like to have Deion, this, that, or the other. But, again, just manufacture facts where they're needed.
Because
I actually kind of thought he was going to take it, too, the way that he was hinting about. He instantly posted something on Instagram, like he posted a picture of some peaches, like Georgia.
Oh, by the way, Colorado, I don't know if they have the money now. They didn't have the money to pay him when they hired him. So that's just a good business strategy. So guys, like when you go get a job somewhere, and they give you an offer and they say, hey, but we don't actually have the money to pay you this, you should always accept that. That's super smart.
Georgia peach. And I'm like, that some gun's going to Georgia. You
know, I think that Colorado's a
Georgia
team
Tech.
that's more set up for success than him, and then they've already shown a quick turnaround and a willingness to put in as much support as possible. But no, this Brent Key hire, man, the one that I said from the jump is just it was so unbelievably lazy, and that's what the lazy move to do is when
your guys. I thought they weren't saying it's lazy.
It's harder to get mad at a guy who's one of your program.
I don't care about that.
He's going to get a longer leash than somebody from the outside. It's just the reality of it.
He's going to be on a relatively short leash.
I agree with that. But you know what? Again, like I would have called Willie Fritz. You know what else I would have called? I would have called Dan Mullen. I would have made these elite coaches tell me no.
So Dan Mullen is an elite coach, guys, if you didn't know.
Like they didn't even take the time to do that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. So I guess he's on the board of like athletics at Georgia Tech. So he knows everyone we interviewed and what we talked about with them. I mean, that's great. That's how I'm going to start arguing now. Just, oh yeah, I know stuff. I just know stuff that there's no way I could possibly know.
They hired him right off the bat.
The best
We didn't hire him right off the bat. How can you say he was the interim and say we hired him right off the bat? He wasn't the first choice, or he would have been hired the minute the season ended. Again, objectively, I can't even talk now. Objectively, factually, not true.
The interview that they had was Willie Fritz.
How does he know that? I mean, how could you possibly know that, sir?
It's the best interview that they had.
Oh, he said the best interview. I thought they said the only one. But again, even if you're saying it's the best, to say it's the best means you know everyone they interviewed, and you don't.
And you're just not going to have success when you can't recruit. Recruiting is the lifeblood that fuels the dreams of champions. And if you don't fuel that lifeblood, then you're not going to be worth a damn. And I would, you know what, Joe, I would have been like, you know what, okay, well, he had a really crappy high school.
They're going to come in and talk about Brent Key's recruiting, by the way. But I think he does have a point here. Well, he doesn't have a point. He's just straight up right. I mean, if you can't recruit in college football, you're not going to win. That's facts.
Class, but he killed it in the portal. He didn't even
do that.
He went and got Haynes King as his primary dude.
Yeah. Did we get Braylon Oliver? Did we get Andre White?
And it's not
Did we get Chase Lane?
hard. I'm making this sound easier said than done. I would argue that it's feasible to pick apart the portal as an academic school and go and pull the best kids from the Ivy Leagues and from other academic institutions.
Okay, name me one kid that plays for Harvard or Princeton or Dartmouth that you want on your football team as a D1 school. I'll wait.
The FCS level, and then also across the country, guys from Stanford, guys from UCLA, guys from those types of schools. It's not difficult.
Yeah, it's not difficult. That's why, probably 20% of coaches are fired every year.
Really good school because those kids value education.
How many guys did Notre Dame have leave?
We've already talked about that.
I would have offered every one of them.
Yeah.
I would have offered every one of them.
But look, there's a point there. Yeah, I mean, fair. If you've already used to the higher academic standards at Notre Dame, probably good. And we have pulled people out of Notre Dame before. Actually, that's one thing Collins did. So I could have sworn they talked about how
good school because those kids.
Anyways, we won't go there. But I just don't agree with that. And look, I'm sure they have a great show. In fact, go on their channel and watch the video. Comment on it. Say what you think. Don't be nasty. Don't be rude. No point in that. But just arguing college football, I just think they're dead wrong on that. Like you can say you don't think Brent Key was the best hire Georgia Tech could have made, and that's fine. But just when you start saying things like, "Oh, they were really their wins came at a good time," and like that's not. I mean, what do you want? What do you want from the guy? It's not sustainable. So if we win 7 games a year, would you say, oh, well, Joe will come back and say, oh, well, that's just not sustainable, though. He had success, but it's not sustainable. I don't know, guys. It irritated me a little bit. But, hey, everyone gets to get on YouTube and give their opinion. That's what I love about it. So, look, I commented saying, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. And I'll tell you this, I would go on their show, too, and talk about it. Probably won't be interested, and that's fine, too. So, tell me what you guys think. These guys have a point or not. Talk to y'all later.